Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is,
Hold on, Marky.
what?
The internet's not working.
Oh, welcome
To
to
be
my
a common
problems
theme
today.
today. Was yours down today too?
Yep.
So was mine.
Somebody said it's out in the whole country. Now that's hard to believe.
Right.
Mine kept going in and out.
Is that right?
It's Comcast.
Probably because they know it's election day coming up. It's on the ballot.
Yeah, broadband.
Oh, I forgot it was election day.
Okay, call me. Okay, we're recording on the recorder. Is that what we're doing?
You're on television, but not on the internet.
Geez. Okay. I guess those who want to watch from home on the internet are not going to be able to. So hopefully everybody can get their TVs turned on. And it's okay. Mel's here. Okay. Hey. Okay. It's November 6th, and it is snowing outside, and the limelight's been topped off for all of you who will be watching this production of Town Council here in Snowmass Village. And I was hoping Granicus would be working so you would all hear that wonderful announcement. Just a few little things. Thanksgiving potluck is coming. Huh? You can't hear me? No. Okay, that's what. Can you hear me now? Nope. Are we? Okay. Thank you all. Just don't throw peanuts. Okay. Thanksgiving potluck is on the 19th, 18th, 19th?
19.
You know, I forget when we're having so much fun here in the town. And that will be at the Weston. It's free for all. Please come. It starts at what time, Julianne?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. And there's, everybody has to bring a dish that will serve 8. Depending on your last name, you need to go to the internet and figure out if you're bringing a casserole or a dessert and or a side. There will be judging for the best dish in each classification. Unfortunately, this year I will be in California, so I'm really going to miss it. And my waistline won't miss it because I usually get stuck doing desserts. Okay, are we all good to go? Anything else coming up? Mountain is going to open pretty soon. It's all good stuff, right?
All good.
Team and audience, everyone's here. It's great. Okay, roll call.
Butler,
Here.
Circus, Madsen,
Here.
Shank,
Here.
Good.
Here.
Okay, I do know that Bob is back in town. He was in Boulder over the weekend, and I think I may have seen the image of his body just walking down in front of Town Hall.
He's coming in, I see.
Okay, he's coming in. Do I have any public comment this evening? Come on up. Hey, Bob.
Circus,
407. Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. For the record, my name is Tony Kronberg, and with winter fast approaching, and with the blizzards and snowstorms, and would like to bring forward to the council tonight a couple of studies that I unearthed in the Snowmass research archives, and of course they have to do with a transportation element connecting Base Village and Town Center. And I think as this winter is approaching, that soon a decision is going to have to be made if you're going to be putting a pedestrian bridge or an aerial connection between Base Village and Town Center. And I would like to ask the town of Snowmass if you could please do a survey of your community and your guests if they would prefer a pedestrian bridge or an aerial connection. And if the town council does not see that's fitting, I'm more than happy to conduct the survey myself. It's a real simple question, aerial or pedestrian bridge. And I know that Snowmass likes to use the term shovel ready. And with the answer to a question of the survey, you can be shovel ready, so to speak, when the decision comes if you want to either put an aerial connection or a pedestrian bridge. And I would like to submit to the council right now, there's a group, I'm sure that you've probably heard that the city of Aspen is conducting an aerial transportation feasibility study about bringing Lift 1A further down the mountain, and it has a dual purpose, not only bringing skiers up and down the mountain, but also the lodges that are soon to be constructed along South Aspen Street. That same group, SE Group, they've actually did a study for the town of Snowmass on the benefits of an aerial connection, the ridership, the cost of it. That was back in 2003. You also had another group in 2002 that's called the LSC Group, and they did a really comprehensive report about connecting not only Base Village, the center, but with the mall and then further down, and they actually have a lot of the ridership counts. So I would like to submit that to the record. The first page is the aerial consultants, the SE Group. While they are here in Aspen, I think that would be beneficial that Snowmass, that we connect with the SE Group. There, I think it just went out. And then I also have the easement that Snowmass Acquisition granted to the town of Snowmass for the aerial connection. And then the aerial people mover system, a technical review, capital and annual operating costs that was done by the SC Group. And then also what's known as the Snowmass Village Center multi-use development that was done by LSC Transportation Consultants. And I will also email to you all of the reports. One of the reports only took 2 or 3 pages out. So I can give it to you now, or I can hand it to the clerk and she can disseminate that to you. If you like, I can bring it forward to you now.
Let's give it to our clerk so it can go into the record and other people can peruse it as well.
Okay. And then,
Yeah, if you want to pass out those, it'd be fine.
okay.
Thank you, Tony. Okay. Oh, that brings back memories.
Thicker copy.
Look at Gus.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tom.
Anything else? Are we good? That's 5 minutes, okay. We're going to move on now to seeing if there's anyone else in the public who would like to make a comment. Hearing none. Next is a continuation of public hearing regarding major PUD amendment, preliminary plan application involving the enclave. Jim? Or Julianne?
Thank you, Mayor. At the last meeting on October 2nd, Council heard the initial presentation of the applicant, from the applicant of this particular application for the preliminary plan with its additions, and the staff recommended that the applicant formally submit an amendment to the application to better explain the restricted housing unit being proposed, as was presented to the Planning Commission back in August. But the amendment, we recommended that it address all the effects from such a change, and that wasn't really presented to the Planning Commission at the time. So early last week, we received the amendment that explained more of the effects of this particular change. We think the applicant is proposing a different type of restricted housing unit, but I'll let them explain it. And per the code, the town council has a few options to consider. One is to whether the amendment should be allowed. The amendment should be allowed, but the Planning Commission should have an opportunity to review that particular amendment. Third is that the amendment should be allowed and the application should proceed. And then the fourth option is a total remand of the amendment and the application if the changes are considered fairly significant. Council has the option to remand the whole application back to the Planning Commission for review.
So, question for you, Jim. So it came in last week, the amendment, and staff has not had an opportunity to really look at it. Is that correct?
Correct. We just generally overviewed it,
Okay.
kind of get an understanding, but, to give staff and departments, districts an opportunity to review it, we should, as a matter of courtesy, refer it out, get it evaluated, and then bring back a comprehensive report back to the council that kind of explains all these changes.
So, to the council, the purpose of the discussion tonight is, are we going to accept the amendment and direct it to staff, or are we going to take a different action? as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we need a presentation. I think we just discuss which way we want to go. I would suggest that we accept the amendment and send it to staff so they can evaluate it, and then come back in December.
Madam Mayor and Jim, was the amendment part of the packet? Because I don't think I saw it as an amendment.
Yeah, it should have
Yes,
been
it
part
was.
of the
Yeah, it was
packet.
attached.
It was attached,
Has
an
been
amendment.
in the second, in the second part or in the first part?
It was 42 pages.
It's
right?
40.
Under the enclave attachment?
Uh-huh.
There's
Yeah.
quite a bit of
The
text to it,
changes
but
were
there's
in
some
yellow, I think.
graphics, changes to the parking, the unit equivalency, the employee housing
Okay,
calculations.
so
which-
whatever was
Yelled out.
Yellow.
yellowed out, right, highlighted in yellow,
Yes.
were the amended
Yeah.
portions of the?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Correct, I think that's what the applicant was trying to emphasize. But I think the applicant is, per code, supposed to present their amendment to the council.
Okay, we'll
tonight's
keep it
meeting.
brief, because we got a long meeting tonight. So it's, just to refresh everyone's memory, the last time we saw this, we were talking about an RO, which we do not have consideration for in our code, and there are a few other minor issues associated with the project. So Jim is here, he's going to go through a quick presentation, and then we'll take an action.
And we brought everything that you may want to recap if for any reason you wanted to do that, but we'll just talk about this amendment, which we inadvertently called an addendum, but it is an amendment. It's my understanding, we had a meeting with staff and with John Dresser to discuss how this process can work. It was our understanding that this amendment can be presented to the town council, which you can accept as an amendment to the application at this meeting. Essentially, I don't know why I'm getting feedback there, but the essential element of the amendment is to add a restricted housing unit. We proposed that. We perhaps misnamed it based on what the Planning Commission had said as an RO unit, but what we're defining that as is a for-sale restricted housing unit that would follow the for-sale guidelines that the town has for other restricted housing. What we had presented at the last time was a simplified view of that, and we've totally fleshed it out now so that the town council, the extent you want, can see what the issue is. So I'll just go through this amendment and not talk about any of the other elements that we talked about last time, but again, reiterate that we've got all that in the file here if you want to look at that. So this is a floor plan of the proposed additional building, which is proposed to provide some revenues to help pay for some of the major renovation, and this is really a renovation project. This is what we refer to as the once-in-a-lifetime upgrade and update for a condo complex, that in a 70, 80, 90-year lifespan of a condo complex, once during its lifetime, it makes sense to do a major upgrade so that it brings it up to date. It's not doesn't turn into a 70-year-old project at some point. So the ground floor of the units, there's two one-bedroom units, two-bedroom, one floor, two-bedroom units, two-bedroom. This is the 820 square foot proposed restricted housing unit, and this is the lowest level of a unit that stacks up above that. So the second floor is the lowest floor of a three-bedroom unit, the lowest floor of a three-bedroom unit, and this is the middle floor of the five-bedroom unit. Four-bedroom unit, excuse me. And this is the upper floor of the three-bedroom unit, upper floor of the three-bedroom unit, and the upper floor of the four-bedroom unit. I don't know if that all makes sense, but it's Essentially, we squeezed a restricted housing unit in on the ground floor, but it didn't take the entire ground floor to do that. These are the modified elevations, which are very minor. I won't point these out. I'll use the model to point out where the modifications are. These are the charts that were redone to reflect the impacts of this restricted housing unit. So you help me out a little bit here, Randy, but in the blue are all the items that were changed from the original submittal, which refers to both the employee housing and the parking.
Yeah, the blue is what changed. On the left, it's the FAR and the bedroom count calculation changes. On the right, it's the employee mitigation, and on the bottom of that chart is the parking calculation changes. And these, I believe, are all in your packet as well.
And the gist of that is that we, as a result of adding this additional restricted unit, call it an employee housing unit, it requires some more parking, and it adjusts the FAR calculations a little bit. Interestingly enough, that the FAR calculation actually
Bumped up a smidgen.
yeah, it upped it a smidgen. It went from 504 to 1 to 506 to 1. This is a sheet that's in your
We'll get to it.
in your package. Okay, we'll get to that. And then, with regards to the parking, we now have 1.5 parking spaces more than the code requires. And we've added the parking. There's 2 parking spaces are required for the 2-bedroom unit that we've added, and 1.5 parking spaces are required for the 2 studios. So
Okay.
we have 6 dedicated restricted housing parking spaces. This is probably into the weeds for all of you, but this
Yeah,
is
it's
what
kind of
was.
getting down in the weeds.
And then
Unit equivalency.
and this is the unit equivalency calculations. The things shown in yellow there are what have changed. We're happy to talk about that, but we won't try
No,
to
no,
decipher that.
that's the job of the staff.
Yeah, I agree. And so here are these are the issues associated with this amendment, which we call addendum. So we've got the additional restricted housing unit of 822 square feet. The reduction in height and mass of all 3 stair towers, which is one of the elements, because we don't need to go to the 3rd floor now, which you'll see in the floor plan. So we actually reduced some of the height elements. What have we got here for?
We had 3 employee units on the property. We're now proposing 4 for a total of 6 bedrooms, and that's 1,662 square feet more than would be otherwise required for mitigation.
So the mitigation requirement would be 988 square feet, and we're actually providing, with this proposal, we would be providing 2,650 square feet, which is the 622 more than the town requires by code. We've added 2 parking spaces, which again, we can show how that happens, but it's not magic, and that makes us 1.5 parking spaces more than the code requires. FAR, slight adjustment, no change to the open space because we have the same footprint, and the unit equivalency actually goes the other way. We go down from 9.3 to 9.14 units per acre because some decks and things are taken out that tweak that number slightly. So that number from the town's perspective would be slightly better. This is we were asked to revise the model that we have that shows how that would work. This is where the new restricted unit is proposed to be located, which is directly above some parking below, so there's a stairway that comes up right here to the new unit. We think that's actually a very attractive place for a internally located in the core of the village, but to have green space and planting around and a nice patio area on a ground level. These are the stair towers that actually were reduced in height. And then the square footage, the 820 square feet that were added for the restricted unit, that is made up by the footprint of the building on the top floor, which stays within the foundation line and the roof line as it had previously existed. Just another view that shows the, looking downhill, Base Village on this side. This is where the restricted unit would be located, and this is the bottom end of the proposed new building. Another view, this is actually looking across the ski slope from the Crestwood side. I'm not sure, Randy, what we show there. There's really no
No
impact to
change
speak
is what
of.
we're showing,
No
yeah.
change, okay. Another view, this is the part that has changed. This piece here was expanded out onto what was previously a deck, so it was a walkway. So it was a 6-foot wide walkway, now it's a 6-foot wide expansion of the building. Again, no change in actually, we slightly reduced the free market square footage, and we just enclosed that walkway in order to offset the square footage that was taken out of the bottom level. Again, this is just a view showing where that unit is, right here. And this is a parking garage view, so that unit would be on the corner here. Parking is underneath. This is where the 2 additional parking spaces were added. We were able to reconfigure this and add a space here and add a space over here. What are we showing here?
Just a reconfigured parking garage.
Yeah, that's the reconfigured parking. We actually went, in this one bay of parking here, we went to compact size spaces, so these are only 8-foot wide parking stalls. And they had a question about the trash, which we reconfigured there. What else are we seeing here? That's it. So that's essentially what we're proposing is the change to what the original application was. And it is all centered around the fact that we're adding an additional, we're all adding we're adding an additional employee unit or housing, restricted housing unit, adjusting the parking, adjusting the model a little bit, the three-dimensional aspect of the building a little bit. So we think it's significant in the fact that it's adding an additional unit, but it's minor in terms of all of its other impacts on the property. So we would ask the council to accept that as a amendment to the submittal.
Okay, I will go ahead now and open the public hearing. Is there any comments from the public? Okay. Do I have any further discussion or questions from council members?
Gus, that one sheet that showed the summary of what this amendment included, would you please send that to staff so we can get that?
That
would
was
have been-
submitted last
That would have
week.
been really helpful
This one.
to understand what I
This
was
one,
looking at.
yes,
Yeah.
Sure.
It's part of the slideshow, which we'll get to.
Okay,
We'll give
We'll
them
give
a
them
thumb
the-
drive,
yeah.
yeah.
thank you.
Okay, any other further questions? Yes? Do I have a motion? Which way you want to go? As
I'll
council?
move,
I'll make a motion to accept the amendment and pass it on to the planning
The staff or the play?
staff.
Staff. I have a motion on the table to accept the amendment and send it over to staff and then come back here on December the 4th. Is that even reasonable? I'm looking to
so.
staff. Is
Yes.
it doable? Okay. I'm looking at you, Jim.
Well, we've already done the comprehensive report,
Okay.
it'll just be a matter of updating
Okay.
certain sections. of it.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the table to accept the amendment and direct it to our staff and to return on December 4th for final, hopefully, decision or next steps. All in support, say aye.
Aye.
you
Aye.
didn't get a.
You didn't get a second?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second. I'll second.
Well, I knew you had your hand up. Thank you.
I'll second.
Oh, thank you. All in support, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, moving on. We're moving to Several
John
things.
has a
Yeah,
question.
John? Oh, I have to continue the public hearing. I will continue the public hearing to December the 5th? 4th, at 4 PM.
Thank you.
Thinking of December 5th, I have another event, so, okay. December the 4th, 4 PM. Thank you, and thank you all for coming. Next, let me suggest something here as we go into budget. I would almost, I would like to think about moving the overall resolution for the budget, page 54, for 2018 till after we complete the Building 6 letter of interest submissions. And the reason for that, there is a placeholder within the budget. I don't know if anyone else is interested in doing that. We may need to modify that. We don't know what the number is.
I would like to do that.
You'd like to do that?
Yeah.
You okay with that if we move the budget until after? Oh, Mary Ann's sitting here.
For Mary Ann. Sorry, Mary Ann.
We'll do the.
You'll do the road levy,
do the
road bill levy. Yeah, let's get that done.
Yeah.
The road levy we can do.
Come on up. And you can get out your calculator as we start looking at all these other proposals. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Thank you, Mike. Okay,
Good evening.
how are you?
Ann.
I'm good.
And
Hey,
how's
Ann
your
Martins.
world? You guys busy?
Huh, what's
Are
that?
you guys busy?
Yeah, we're getting ready for the winter. And I just got back from Minnesota and that just came right out, that
How-
accent.
You said winter.
Wow. Sorry about that. Oh, yeah, I heard it too. So I'm here tonight to present the 2018 Road Mill Levy Fund topic. This is a public hearing, so we will need to open that public hearing.
Okay, I am going to go ahead and open the public hearing on the road mill levy.
Perfect.
Ann, you want to proceed?
Yes. So you have a memo in your packet. Each year we go through, actually we do a 5-year projection, but we come forward every year and discuss the projects that we're anticipating that we'll be doing for improvement in the following year. And the projects that we have outlined for next year is Stellar Lane, Meadow Road, and Brush Creek Road from Sinclair to Meadow Road. And then also some work on Carriage Way. We're working on doing some crack filling and seal coating of the concrete. So the amount that we've identified in the road to be funded by the road mill levy is $250,000. What we do is come spring, we do reanalyze what we've recommended and make sure that those are still the projects that we want to do those improvements on. Typically, I haven't seen any changes from our recommendations. And then we advertise, finish up the specifications, advertise and go out to bid, and then start construction as soon as we can between the shoulder season and the summer season. And basically, there was a map included in the packet that showed those areas. We also do some small maintenance projects throughout the village, but basically those are the large infrastructure projects that we're looking to be funded by the Road Mill Levy Fund.
So, questions for Ann?
No, nothing.
And it's just it's not a question, but I'd like you to look at going up Lower Faraway with all that construction, all those heavy construction trucks. I think there's 3 or 4 homes going on and up there, and it's starting to get really like this.
So, yeah, some rutting. We have some rutting in some other areas that we're
Yep.
keeping an eye on. We can do patches on those types of
Okay,
things.
that's very helpful.
Just to go back, we do a process that came from the Midwest. It's called a passer analysis, and that helps us go through and analyze it. There's several different pavement management programs that you can use, but for our community, it works. It's pretty simple. A ranking from 0 to 10, and we try to keep those rankings at a certain level so that we meet our bonding requirements of maintaining our infrastructure. So I will take a look to see where that road's at. We've got some other areas that we look at. Just the other thing, just a note on that is we probably will have some surveying work done maybe in the next few weeks, just to check on pavement widths I'm looking at, to make sure that we have adequate shoulders. So when I talk about that Brush Creek section, some of those recommendations about the climbing lanes for biking or whatnot, I just need to get some more information on what the actual infrastructure is out there. So then when we overlay it, we're preparing it for the future.
Thank you very much.
That's it.
Is there any questions or comments from the public? How about from council?
And when was the last time that Meadow Road was resurfaced?
I don't have that answer, but I can find out. There was a section that was repaired 2 years ago, I believe, with the Water and Sanitation District because they did a water line project. So part of this whole project is identifying the roads, is we take a look at the infrastructure. Then we also contact all the utility companies and see what they have on their slate, because sometimes we will hold off a section if they have a water line project that's anticipated. But I do know there's a section in there that has been replaced, and when there is a larger infrastructure project, like up on Wood Road, there was improvements, we make them do the full lanes, the full width section, not do just a partial lane section, so that we don't get a settling issue. So that might be what you might see.
Okay.
As far as it looks like newer asphalt, a
Right.
little bit halfway up the road.
Okay.
So
Quick question, Dan, and the pedestrian trail next to the Blue Roofs,
yes,
which is where you're going to end, right, at Sinclair Road.
Yep.
How do you see that blending into,
so we're not looking at that section. Is the section that has been overlaid on Brush Creek Road, and then the trail is lower. We're not looking at doing the overlay in that section. Going forward, when we do that section, it'll be uniform, as well as we're also been talking about what kind of improvements we can have
right? that's
as
what
far
we
as the
talked about
trail to
survey,
delineate
And that
it.
would be a good section to
Right.
start with, because of safety reasons.
Right. So on that one, though, we're looking at, is there delineators or some type of infrastructure guardrail to differentiate the trail from the roadway surface?
Absolutely.
So, but we're not, that's not the project we're looking at. It's actually below that intersection. There's some field work we need to do on this project. The CCP conversations about climbing lanes, making sure the shoulder is wide enough, looking at the ditch section. So there's a little bit of work we need to finish up before. But this is our obligation to talk about. We have funding identified for 2018, and these are the road mill levy funds.
Okay, is there any other questions for Ann? Any questions from the public? Okay. Do we have to do a vote to approve it?
Do you
Or do we do it
close the
with the
public
overall
hearing
budget?
first?
You can close the public hearing.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing since there's no further questions, and we'll incorporate the recommendation in the overall budget approval. Are you fine with that, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Ann.
Thank you.
Welcome back from Minnesota.
Thank you. Wow, that came right out.
Next item will be review of Building 6 letter of interest submissions. And is Travis here? Travis, are you going to help with this?
I'm gonna
Or
start
no,
this-
or is
I'm gonna
Clint?
start for you here. And
Okay.
Travis is welcome to join me. I was back on budget, sorry, let me get my stuff here. So as you all are aware, we had a number of submissions for the letter 6, what we called letter of interest. I might point out that we specifically kind of went down this letter of interest route, which is far less formal than a RFP route, so that we could give as many nonprofits and other groups time to respond. There was some debate back and forth whether there was time to respond with an LOI, and so we're in an RFP, so we just went with a letter of interest, trying to keep it as simple and uncomplex as possible. So to date, we received 12 different submissions. As you read through them, some are simple letters saying they'd like to participate in the process. Some are far more comprehensive. What they were responding to was a proposal that we put out that let everybody know that Building 6 would be finished around November 1st of 2018. A white box would be delivered, and our goal was to bring as much vitality and interest to the Base Village complex as possible, providing all the background information. Oh, I thought it was right there. Sorry, I must do it. So this is the document that, that was available online, that we mailed to a number of folks, trying to give as much background information to people as possible. Through last week, we received, like I said, 12 different responses to that, different variations of complexity. And really what we're looking for tonight is some direction from council on how best you would like to proceed with these responses that we've got. Staff's recommendation, because some are so comprehensive and some are not, to let us go ahead and work with the applications. We purposely, in this request for letter of intent or interest, tried to keep it broad so that we could combine, mix and match, take as many ideas as possible. I think it's fair to say one of the goals of this from the council was to get as much community input in this as possible, to make sure there's any good ideas out there that we could get that. I think you can see that we got a wide variety of input, and now hopefully we can take a lot of these ideas and put them together to have an idea going forward that will meet those council goals of vitality in Bates Village. So with that, I think that's our presentation. There's a lot of issues to discuss, and we're really looking tonight for direction on how you'd like us to proceed in this evaluation.
As I started through this tome, for all of you who enjoy reading, please go on the town council packet. That's all of the applications. There's a lot of them. A lot of them are pretty thin, others no more than a letter. Others are pretty significantly developed. I think it's important that we, as a team, develop some objective criteria by which evaluation and decisions could be made. And that's how I kind of did it, okay? I had basically three different criteria that I wrote down. The first one that I wrote was the letter or was the proposal able to create for me in my mind a sense of vitality, significant vitality from early morning as the skiers come to late at night up until 10 o'clock at night. And it wasn't vitality for just adults, but a high emphasis on children and adolescents. The second one really got into finance. Is what would be the requirement on behalf of our town and expectations for our town in terms of initial capitalization and development all the way through ongoing support, which in essence is taxpayer dollars. The third is a little bit more, it could be considered a little subjective. To what extent did I see people reaching out to one another to already begin what I call the convener of bringing people together to develop the space? So, for example, if I looked at ACES, did we see anything that was supportive within, as I looked at Snowmass Discovery Center, those seemed to be a natural, and Aspen Science Center, all those were kind of a natural fit. And I wanted to see if I saw evidence of already collaboration. And that's a little bit more subjective and could be considered premature. And those were basically my criteria. I don't know, did anybody else develop criteria when they looked at the event? Alyssa, shaking her head.
I mean, I didn't formalize it. I didn't write it down like you did, but I sort of, I mean, first of all, I want to thank everyone that submitted.
It's pretty
because
awesome, isn't it?
It was really interesting to read all the different proposals, and lots of ideas were running through my mind, and it was very exciting. But I agree. I mean, I do think it's important to establish criteria. I mean, there were a few in there that I sort of doubted whether they were going to pull in the younger generation. And to me, if you're going to have something that's sitting outside that plaza, it has to draw in a wide range, from like little kids to
Old people.
old people.
Thank you.
You said it, not me. And, I mean,
Jeff,
things...
don't you love this one?
Exactly. I mean, like, things like the Aspen Brewing Company, it's interesting, but like, I don't know if that's the best, like, family-friendly sort of environment for little kids. So I do think it is important to establish criteria. I think one of the things is, you know, like the letter we saw from ACES, Science Center, Discovery. I mean, I kind of think it would be interesting for staff to meet with a representative from each of those entities together to be able to sit down and figure out if there is a collaborative effort that could happen. Because what I sort of heard from all three of those specific entities was, we don't want to take it on by ourselves. We don't want to be the main fundraiser. Well, what is it that you can really contribute? Was sort of my thought with them. And
What's it gonna cost?
and can you make it work? I don't know if
It's gonna be, what's it cost? What
Right.
does it cost the town?
right. So
Yeah, and, I mean, the flip side of that is, what are they each willing to commit to financially?
right.
Right.
Right?
And that's the big thing. I mean, if you were to get together, is it going to work?
And
You know,
who's going to
some
orchestrate it?
Right.
Somebody's got to be in charge.
right.
I
And
mean-
some of those were, you know, and some people just kind of threw out ideas that they might like to see to happen, but they aren't gonna, you know, they don't have anything behind them to make it happen. They just like the idea.
Agree.
Yeah. But I thought it was great. I mean, it was really interesting to read the proposals.
You know, if you were to put several of these together, it's always about who's on first.
Yep.
So, you know, the notion, I think it was floated by East West, about forming a nonprofit seemed to have some merit as a convener.
It was interesting to me that there were a number of these proposals that were designed, if you will, around a nonprofit, an independent nonprofit. Grassroots was like that,
Right.
East West was like that, and
Discovery's already there.
Discovery, you know, was already
Science Center.
there.
is.
I mean, even MZ's suggestion was essentially the concept of an entity, but it was a for-profit entity, not a nonprofit entity.
Right.
Right.
But it was the same, you know, it was the same kind of a structure. And I think that I came away with the concept that a structure, something like that, probably makes the most sense.
Right. And then I got to the point, well, it's premature on a convener or a nonprofit until you go through the various proposals to figure out what fits, what doesn't, what brings a vitality, and really, what's it gonna cost? Not only for an organization. If an organization has to go through a capital campaign of a significant amount of money, like anywhere from $5 to $10 million, it's not gonna happen by 2018. It's very, very hard to pull off that kind of money.
Before we get into the money,
Money?
because
Yeah.
that we could, you know, certainly it's a significant issue, and we could spend a long time on that. I wanted to, I guess, throw up another idea. You know, we talked about generally like 3 organizations that seem like they would fit together, but I think we shouldn't not include the library. I mean, there's no reason why the library couldn't become some kind of a partner with Science
Absolutely.
Center and Discovery and
Yeah, no, I mean, I was kind of
ACES.
generally I only mentioned those 3, but just the ones that sort of like said, we'd want to be a part of it, but we can't do it by ourselves.
yeah.
As long as they seem to all relate in some way.
I guess my hope tonight, for the sake of moving forward in trying to reach some kind of a conclusion in the near future, I guess I would like to see if there is a way, if any of these should be removed from consideration based on what they have proposed to us at this point and what they, and whether we think those the proposal fits these criteria. And Marky, you codified the criteria, but I acknowledge that very much like Alyssa, as I read these, more or less, this is what was going through my mind in terms of, did this meet this, a certain level of interest? So, and not that I don't think all of these were, valuable, and I appreciate whatever, all the people who brought in proposals, what they did. But obviously, we can't use all 12 proposals. So at some point, we have to figure out which ones seem to have, seem to be a better opportunity, going forward.
Okay. Any other comments, criteria? Tom?
So, one thing out of all the proposals that struck me, the one word that, it was the Aspen Science proposal, and the word STEAM Center, where there's a number of different people we were talking about the non-profits all together. But again, as I said earlier when Alyssa was speaking of what was on her mind, who's going to orchestrate this?
Yep.
So is it going to be the town? And Andy from Parks and Recreation had a great proposal. But then again, now, is the town going to be operating this building? I don't know. I mean, we will be responsible for the concession station, whether it's coffee or whatever it is, the hot dogs or popcorn or whatever. But again, I like the term STEAM Center, but I don't know who's going to be running the STEAM Center.
I think that's kind of one of the things that we don't know the answer to. When we had the original ACES proposal, the letter that we offered to them was we did provide dollars for them to have staff. I mean, if the council said, hey, this is our chance to provide some level of ongoing support, I think that, you can call that leadership, you can call it what you want, or you can call it fiscal concern. I mean, you can, depending on which side of the aisle you want to be on. But I think what we're recommending at this point is, rather than trying to vet everything in a public meeting, let us go and have these discussions with the groups, see who we think can work well together. My guess is you can see from the applications, there's a lot of overlap which is a good thing. And if we can start those discussions, figure out who overlaps with what and what some of these physical layouts and constraints, how they might be met. And then if the council's comfortable, say, hey, this is what the town's obligations or contributions could be, we could come up with some ideas that you could come back and more fully vet.
So we kind of talked to ACES in regards to what the town would pledge.
Right.
And that was a number of $100,000 a year.
It was
Correct.
Correct.
a
Okay,
little over $1 million.
that being said, I think we need to keep that on the table for everybody involved with these letters.
I totally disagree.
Really?
Every one of these proposals is different. And
Well, I know they're different.
And each one has different needs, requirements, and personally, I frankly think that
Let me
in
just say this.
retrospect,
I just want to say that I'm saying this towards the nonprofits, not some of the other proposals.
Well,
For
that's
instance,
okay.
The brew
But
company or whatever.
that's okay, but even that, in retrospect, I feel that being as public with what the town was willing to do for ACES has created a level of expectation that we, to some extent, we're stuck with. And so, as much as I kind of, in one hand, disagreed with you about how much the town should contribute to any one of these things going forward, on the other hand, we've already said something, right? We've already
Well, we already put it on the table.
put it on the table. But I am going to take a step back and say, not every proposal, number one, not every proposal is asking for those sums of money, and not every proposal would necessarily require them.
So where I landed on, yeah, Jeff? Yeah, yeah. Come on up front, Jeff, come on up. In fact, I erased that whole notion out of my mind right now because we don't know anything. We don't know what we don't know, so I don't know what needs might be. Jeff?
Sure.
Welcome back, Jeff. Good to see you.
Thank you. Are you picking me up? Okay. I've been following this discussion in the newspapers for quite a while.
Jeff, you need to state your name for the
My
record.
name is Jeff Tippett, for the record. Anything else I have to say? No?
Serial number,
How long I've lived here?
social security number,
Or address?
Too young.
Okay.
bank account numbers.
Thank you.
I've been following it, and I've been concerned about the issue. My initial thought was to come here and give you 4 words of advice: take the money and run. But I had the opportunity to sit in the back row and read all of the proposals this afternoon. And so now I would just like to offer a little moderated advice. I understand your desire to create vitality in Base Village. It's really not your responsibility to create vitality there. Your responsibility is to come up with a reasonable financial plan for the town and not to burden the town for years and years and years in the future because of a failed attempt. And I'll just give you a little bit of history. Snowmass, when it opened 50 years ago, we had a movie theater. It's where the bowling alley is now. And it was fun. It was successful. They didn't have first-run movies, but there wasn't anything else going on. And the movie theater was successful. It was operated by a private operator, Don Wade, for years. TV cable came to Snowmass in late 1979, and the movie theater lasted a couple years after that, and then Don Wade didn't renew his lease. Various operators, SRA, tried to do some things on a special event basis. Nothing really happened. Then the town council was approached by a group of local individuals, most of whom we knew, residents of Snowmass Village, who were theater advocates. And they wanted the town to take the lease, and they would operate live theater in the building. And it was great. It was well received by the community. Everybody liked it. But after a couple of seasons, the theater group gave up. So here was the town stuck with a lease on an empty facility. I think there were 6 or 8 years left on the lease. And the town tried to get some interest from the chain movie theater operator in Aspen, the guy who was on Main Street, not there any longer. They did a couple of showings. It just, nothing worked. And eventually the town had to sort of buy itself out of the lease by handing SRA money. SRA took over the lease, but the town gave SRA money to convert the movie theater into a conference facility with a flat floor. And that worked for quite a while, and now it's a bowling alley. So I don't know what happened between the conference facility, the Bedford Ballroom, and the bowling alley, but I guess the bowling alley's doing pretty well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I could fill that blank in.
Yeah.
SRA dissolved and the town took it over
Yeah, okay.
and continued to operate it as a conference center until
Yeah.
the lease expired.
So
Then the landlord got the bowling alley in there.
none of the proposals that I looked at, other than the Aspen Brewing Company, I would consider to be bankable. You can't borrow money on what they're offering you for a financial commitment. And I know from my involvement and my wife's involvement with nonprofits, it's really hard to raise money. And there's so many groups running around town trying to raise money. So I just urge you to be very cautious. Don't put a great burden on the town. I know you have, if you have an opportunity still to cash out of this building, you can reduce the debt on this building, reduce the debt on the recreation center, or explore some other opportunity. But be careful, be cautious. Thanks.
Thank you very much,
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Okay. So in looking at all the proposals, well, let me tell you, I didn't want to get into the sell, don't sell tonight discussion, but I know that we had discussed it previously. I think we need to take another pass at all these proposals. Bob is suggesting we eliminate some, and Jeff made a very valid point on bankrolling. I remember that old movie theater and kind of some of that history. Yeah, Cliff, yeah. You weren't here, but some of us do, we remember that. Bob is suggesting we eliminate some of these. Is that the pleasure of council, or would you like for us to direct the town staff to look at all of them and begin to evaluate what works together? But Bill, you haven't said anything.
Well, I mean, I think we can go through that process and narrow it down. I think it's going to be very challenging to, for anyone who's not a nonprofit to raise any money. I think like East West, it's going to be hard for them to go out to raise any money for a nonprofit that operates in that building. But I do think that there is a great opportunity for a collaborative effort there, and I'd really like to explore that further. I think there's a lot of opportunity to create vitality through a number of these proposals that have been presented. And I think that's the direction that we need to pursue. I think there's really only one or two proposals that we've received that have taken the position that they would take a lead on the project, and I think that that's what those are the groups that we need to pursue, because we have to have someone take control of this, because we want to bring a collaborative effort, but somebody's got to lead the charge.
Okay, let's look at some we would suggest we eliminate so we don't burden staff with a lot of work. Anybody have any?
Okay, so, I mean, since it's my idea, I will take the first bite and take the first heat. But do any of us feel that having the U.S. Ski and Snowboard have an auxiliary museum fit with anything with Snowmass Discovery or anything else that was on here?
I will tell you, I didn't. At some point, I'd love to have a Hall of Fame or something here in Snowmass Village, but this is not the place. That's how I read it.
And I mean, it's my understanding that Aspen is planning to do something very similar if they ever get 1A off the ground.
Yes, that's true.
So all of a sudden, the uniqueness disappears.
Anybody else?
Anybody else with a thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great opportunity. It's fascinating, but I agree. Based on what we're trying to accomplish in this building, it's probably not the right fit.
Nope. Okay. I'm going to take a swing at one.
First of all, are we talking about eliminating these then?
This would be
That's what you
enough,
want to
yeah.
do?
Okay, I'm just going to bring up one that is probably very controversial right now. And I have no idea if it is or not. I don't think the Snowmass Village Parks and Rec Center, great proposal, needs to have another recreational center in town. Every one of the hotels have some type of a rec center. I don't think we can strap our town with one more debt and taxpayer dollars for rec centers.
I agree. I mean, but I was talking to Clint about it this morning, and I think from what I understood he said, it was more about them helping to offer programming than actually physically taking over the space. So for instance, if we had a collaboration between many of those organizations, you could do like an evening family yoga night or something like that, that the rec center could then help facilitate. So I think that if we're gonna put together a group discussion between ACES, Science Center, Discovery, you include Parks and Rec, you include East West, because they all kind of have similar elements that they're interested in doing.
Because you could do the yoga, for your example.
Exactly.
With what East West is saying in that
Exactly.
one space that they
Exactly.
have for
I mean,
adults.
you could on a temporary basis bring in those bikes and do like a fun like cycling thing. I mean, I think that it wouldn't be a permanent setup.
We
I
don't
mean,
need to
that's, I
take
mean,
that
Clint
over.
can chime in anymore, but that was my understanding of
I mean,
it.
it's a programming effort. I mean, whether it's
Right.
whether it's events for day camps or cycling or yoga.
Right.
It was just these are kind of things that we program currently that we could program up in the base village.
Okay, so we'll leave it in for programming, okay? But to take over the whole building, we don't need any more debt.
So the question I have is, you know, there's been a lot of talk about taking the money and run, and people say, take the money and so on. Who's going to give us the money? We've kind of committed ourselves to this being the community purpose. So now, who's going to, if we decide to
put it
take
on
the
the
money and
market.
run, who's going to give us the money?
Developer?
Just put it up for sale.
A
Somebody will
developer can
buy
come
it.
in and,
Someone will buy it, put retail in,
Yeah.
put something.
Or East West might buy it. And
I mean, if to kind of answer the question, one, we to put it up to sale, it needs to be constructed. Yes, I think that's what everybody kind of agrees with. But if we were going to come up and sell it, we'd have to say, what are we actually selling? What kind of a parking is allocated to it? You know, what are those land use issues? You guys would have to make some political issue decisions about, you know, how are we going to, what are we going to allow to operate in there? Because if you said, to be facetious, all restaurants, okay, is the parking there, is the housing there, all that kind of stuff, is it all mitigated for? You can say yes or no, you can allow for those exceptions or not, but you'd have to say, you know, we'd have to go through that land use process a little, I wouldn't call it a formal land use process, but you'd have to go through some kind of process to say, here's what we'd allow in there, and here's what the mitigations are gonna be, so that values can be determined. Because right now, it's community purpose, all that's been offset through the PUD process, and we're comfortable saying these things can happen. If we were gonna go differently, I think there's some decision-making you'd all have to make along the lines, and I know John.
The legal retail space available for that building is our concession station, correct? Is that, I mean, is that maxing it out?
No.
So if somebody were to come in and buy the building, and they wanted to just retail everything, whatever, if it's a clothing shop, coffee shop, and restaurant downstairs,
The way it would happen is you would say this building is available for sale. And someone with interest would come in and they would pitch a concept to you. They would put an option on the property. And the option would be conditional on them getting what they want through a PUD amendment process. So if someone wanted to make it whatever you want, clothing retail, 100%.
that's
Just
totally-
as an example,
right, right.
they would put an option in, they would figure out what they thought that building was worth. And if you thought that their number was, it would be conditional on them getting a zoning approval. It happens quite frequently.
Well, I mean,
In other words, you don't have to decide,
right,
we're gonna zone it this because we want some person that's gonna like that to buy it. You let the market figure that out.
I just don't know if we're putting the cart in front of the horse by trying to eliminate some of these letters of intent.
I don't necessarily consider it an elimination. I mean, I kind of feel like we're sitting here saying, okay, town staff, here's the group of people that you should gather together to have a conversation about this building. Here's some of the ones that don't, like the ski museum. I mean, it's not that we're eliminating it, but I think we are all in agreement that even the person that wrote the letter doesn't have, I mean, there's not a lot of meat to it.
There's no meat.
Right, and I don't know that this is the best place for it. I mean, take something like Aspen Brewing Company, okay, because I talked about it before. I actually really liked their letter. I thought it was a really interesting concept. I think it could bring a lot of vitality and help with events and all these things. But I am concerned about sort of the family element. But is there a possibility of them taking over the food and beverage side and doing something really cool over there? And then bringing these other people on the other side.
The
That
thing-
I don't know.
Yeah, the Aspen Brewing Company I didn't like because it didn't open till later in the day. Said,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
and,
But if they were doing a tap room, you could understand why.
well, yeah, I understand
Right,
why. Yeah,
right.
so I think it's a great idea. I think a brewery would be really neat. On the other hand, I look at a Peaches or something like that that does breakfast and goes all the way now in the evening, and so does Victoria's. So I think I don't want to eliminate the notion of spirits. I'll tell you the proposal I thought had it all encompassed, in all due respect, was Village Hall. And East-West, they're the one that put it together, but they talked about organizing a nonprofit. They're not controlling it. So they're just helping us pay to get it all built out.
Well, I'm going to come back around, because I'm going to stick on this. You know, we got to get something accomplished tonight, and so far, in my opinion, we've got only criteria. That's what we've accomplished,
That's about it.
all right? I don't think the Institute of Contemporary Art, Snowmass, is what we need in Base
Oh.
Village. We've got an Institute of Contemporary Art 9 miles away,
Yep.
and
I eliminated that one.
And we don't need another one.
But if you look at Village Hall proposal and you look at that calendar, that sample calendar they put together, that can fit in there. You can have exhibits, you can have interesting lectures.
But we have an Anderson Ranch, we have an Aspen Art Museum, we have.
But I'm talking like one night a month.
No,
You know.
let me finish.
Okay.
We have organizations in Basalt and Carbondale. All of those organizations currently exist, and they
Could
all
bring in-
could currently come in and put exhibitions
Right.
into.
I agree.
Right? Even if you think, Alyssa, about the chapel and how, the chapel gets the art
Yes.
shows. Every 6 weeks, there's a new art show in there.
Right.
Well, that organization already exists.
Right.
So I don't think we need to.
I don't think we need to form them, but I'm saying that concept of art can be brought in on a lot of those other proposals.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
we don't need that
but
proposal.
that's not this, that's
right.
not this proposal.
Right, I agree.
Okay. Continue to eliminate?
Well, again, I think that, I think MZ's ideas are, they're valid ideas, but they're too big in terms of, I think, cost and for what, we're looking at.
Anybody else
They
disagree?
aren't that much different in some cases from Grassroots or East-West, but they're on a much bigger scale.
Okay, I eliminated that one.
So the Grassroots is, similar to the Park and Rec, very similar in regards to what they want to do, as far as classes and different events, but my feeling
Wait,
is.
the Grassroots?
If we're going-
Grassroots?
Yeah, look,
No,
Grassroots.
Grassroots is all digital media.
It's all
It's
digital
Nexus.
media.
Well, they're also talking about
Nexus.
having some kind of theater and some kind of classes.
Yeah, well,
Right.
they're talking about a performance space.
But if we're talking, I don't know where to go with this, because if we're talking about eliminating some of these, and then we're also talking about taking the money, how are these people that have not been eliminated want to feel about coming forward and doing something when we also have the option on the table to take the money?
It's just another option. It's just another option. We're not close with anybody. East-West wants a 6-month exclusive. Is anybody ready to do that tonight?
Well, we gave somebody else a 6-month.
Yeah, and look
exclusive.
where it left us, right where we are. But honestly, would anybody be willing to give, tonight, right now, would anybody be willing to give anybody another 6-month exclusive?
Okay, it depends on what's going to happen during that period of time, and I will disagree with you. If we say, go forth and do good stuff if we get to that point, it will take them that long to organize the potential nonprofits in there, get a 501c3, and you don't want to be applying for forming an organization if you're going to get kicked away from doing that organization. So I thought it was a great proposal. I don't want to get into the 6 months or 4 months or 5 months, but I thought it was a great proposal.
Well, I'm not suggesting it's not, but I think we have to vet some of these other proposals first before we provide
I'm fine with-
exclusivity for anyone's proposal.
Well, I think to have that discussion comes after we have a recommendation coming back from staff of who's coming together. And they may come back and say, we're going to recommend so-and-so, or this is what it's going to take them to get organized. Everyone's got to have a timeline and what their plan is and what the financing cost, and then second of which, how does that fit into Vitality? So I think that's me, but I don't know about the rest of you.
Yeah.
It's probably the most developed proposal of all of them,
Which one?
What, Village Hall?
East-West?
east-west.
I think I think grassroots is equally as
Yeah,
developed.
I
I
think
thought
that- I
that was
like
really
grassroots,
cool,
yeah.
actually.
Okay.
Okay.
And let me just say one other thing about grassroots. Grassroots, does want to create a separate nonprofit. And what I like about grassroots is they have a balance between for-profit and nonprofit, and they believe that they can earn enough revenue on their own to operate
Right.
their operation. And that's pretty refreshing in terms of how this discussion has gone on for the last year and a half.
Okay, so they're in the mix. I would suggest we stay on this theme of science with ACES and Aspen Science Center, Snowmass Discovery Center. Is that cool with everybody?
Yep.
Other
Just one
little
point.
lib-
One point to make, and I think this goes into the direction to staff on Snowmass Discovery. We received a letter today that Tom Cardeman has resigned as executive director, which adds at least some initial confusion to me as to where the organization's going. and
She's right
who's-
there,
who's
Stephanie.
taking it. Okay. Are you-
Congratulations, that's Stephanie. Come on up.
Yeah, please.
Everybody knows Miss Energy, Stephanie.
I was wondering if I was going to get to talk to you guys.
Yeah, see that? You just needed a lead in.
So I'm your friendly neighborhood paleontologist.
You want to talk about who you are?
Yeah, so my name is Stephanie Lukowski. I am the paleontologist and program director at the Ice Age Discovery Center, and I am acting in Tom's stead until the board decides officially what they want to do.
Okay.
Okay, so the board is trying to determine what they want to do.
Tom just gave his resignation on the 31st, so I have been acting in his stead, and he has recommended that I lead and take over his position, and I am fully prepared to do so.
So you're operating in an interim capacity for now and taking over the helm.
That's correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And good luck to the board as they determine the next direction.
Yeah, so, and just to speak to the collaborative nature, I have already done a lot of collaborations with the Aspen Science Center and with ACES, and our hope is, should you give us the go-ahead, to reconfigure our board completely and have elements from each of those different organizations on our board and go forward through that direction. So I see a lot of great overlap, and I have a lot of fantastic ideas as to how we could work together, because I was just talking to a bunch of 7th graders today in Basalt, and one of the things I told them, and I'm going to tell you, is that my favorite part about paleontology is that it's an interdisciplinary science. We pull from other sciences. So I was talking about chemistry today, but Aspen Science Center, their physics programs are amazing. That fits in very well. Our Day has also offered to partner with us, and climate change is a big part of our mission. ACES, with their current modern ecology, really fits in well, because what I care about isn't just past ecosystems. It's about how the past can inform us about the present and the future. So I see this as being a really vital area that this valley actually needs. We don't have like a big, all-encompassing science center. I was just at the Walking Mountain Science Center in Avon. I did a program for them this weekend, and they get tons of people and tons of visitors, but we don't have anything that's hard science oriented. And I think the kids in this valley and the adults in this valley really deserve to have that. You know, it's something that's amazing, and we don't want to have to drive to Denver for that. And I'd just like to also mention, while I'm up here, that we're the ones with the partnership, the scientific formal partnership with the Denver Museum. And a lot of complaints that I get, well, I don't get a lot of complaints, I actually get a lot of people excited to talk to me, but when I talk to locals here, one of the things they want to know is, why did the fossils all go to Denver? And it's because we don't have a facility here to house the fossils. So given a new building with state-of-the-art environmental controls and security, we could actually bring some of them back, which is not an option in our current space. So just something else to consider. So.
Yeah, Stephanie, as I read your proposal, just stay right there. It's running through my head. And vitality is critical. Second is programming for small children to the elderly adult. I mean, that's a lot of programming. That means a lot of walk-in space and a lot of pop-ups and everything else. So.
Yeah, and that's, you know, something I'm doing with the space that we have now. We have such limited space, and one of the things I am limited to is space. Had I a classroom, you know, I have days where we have 300 people, just general visitors coming through, and then on those days are probably the days that end up having about 150 school kids coming through. And I do programs from K through 12. I do adult programming. I'm sure some of you have seen me up and down the valley. I'm getting our program off the ground, and this is my first, I haven't had a day off in the past couple weeks because I have been in the schools. I've been Skyping with people as far away as I had a class on Friday with students in Maryland. So I am all over the place, and I'm trying to build this up, and I've been getting fantastic reviews, and in fact, I keep getting busier and busier and busier, and I'm reaching the limit to what I can do in our small space. So I get a lot of repeat visitors, and a lot of them, you know, say, we want to see more. We want more of this. Paleontology is interesting to all age groups. In fact, it kind of cracks me up. At the museum, I'll see families with little kids, and they're really excited. And then I'll get teenagers coming in on their own, and I get teenagers to do anything on their own. You know, it's kind of cool that they come in. Then we get the retirees who come in, and they all are passionate about this. And there's a lot of people who plan their vacations just around finding fossils or heritage sites, which we're really lucky to have in Colorado, a lot of different cultural heritage sites, archaeological sites, historical sites, and now the finest high elevation ice age site in the entire world. There's no place else in the world that has this, and we have it right here. A lot of communities would be fighting over the opportunity to showcase this because it is a big deal. People want to come through. So,
have you raised any money?
Well, part of the problem with raising money is we don't have any sort of agreement in place, so it's hard to get big donors. We have been speaking to a few people who would be very interested in donating large sums were there an agreement in place that they would feel comfortable giving us the money.
Okay.
Stephanie, have you given some thought yourself to how this partnership would work, or what it would look like, or what roles different people would have?
Yeah, you know, I would like to see it being a truly collaborative nature with the different organizations, the Aspen Science Center, RDA, with us, Snowmass Discovery, with ACES. I think we all have we all have a part to play in telling the story, and so I think together, as I mentioned before, we'd have to reform the board, reform Snowmass Discovery Board completely, and introduce different elements from there. And so they would be the Board of Discoverers. Sorry, I've been talking to seventh graders all day long, a little tired. So the new Board of Directors would have elements from these different organizations, and we would work together. And as you have mentioned, we overlap so much that this should not be a difficult marriage by any means. This is something.
Who's on first and who's on second? You basically have to form a new nonprofit unless you all merge.
I think we would end up having to merge. You know, in Snowmass Discovery, we do have that scientific partnership with Denver. We do have the ability of the fossils. We do have the paleontologist. And honestly, I think the thing that's going to draw people initially to the museum are going to be the fossils. Fossils are cool. They're amazing. They're interesting. And then our secondary message of climate change and of the science behind both of those things are going to, bring people in deeper, but it's the fossils that are going to be the big draw. You know, we found the largest mastodon in the world. People are going to want to see that. So I think that Snowmass Discovery is prepared to take the lead, with the other organizations being, having a big role to play as well.
Okay.
So how much time would you need working with Clint or Travis, working with staff? How much time would you need to pull together something that looks like an action plan?
I'd have to talk to our board of directors about that and talk to the other entities, but I think somewhere in the order of, gosh, it's really difficult to answer right now, so.
I think it's a fair question.
Yeah, I would have to definitely
Well,
speak to.
I'll tell you-
I clearly know where
You
you're
know
going.
why it is a
Yeah,
fair question.
Well, I
but
know it's a fair, but if I
know
were
it's
sitting,
not an easy answer.
no, because she doesn't know.
That I know.
She just got this job.
No, I know. But again, I'm trying, we're pressed, obviously, we're pressed on the timeline because the building's under construction. On the other hand, we have to try to get it done right. I mean, so that we make the right decision. And so that's why I asked the question. And I recognize that it's not an easy answer, but anyway, that's.
No, it's definitely a fair question, but, the one thing that we have working with us is that with our partnership with the Denver Museum, they are willing to work with us on exhibits. So, once we're able to get going, we're going to have them helping us design exhibits. We have all sorts of other organizations like the Indianapolis Children's Museum. They're willing to help us fundraise, some of their fundraising staff. So once we figure out, or once you all figure out how you want the direction to go, then we're ready to hit the ground running and
Well, I
put
think,
things in motion.
You can flush it out with Clint, but even pulling those entities together for conversations and timelines and budgets, and then how are you going to do that? And then second part is, there is no money.
Not yet.
Well, with this building is opening in 2018.
Right, well, if we have a letter of an intent signed with the town, then fundraising will be much easier. That is a difficulty we've had.
It's hard to raise money as a nonprofit entity, I know it well, and Jeff just talked about it as a nonprofit, but, okay, we're not gonna hammer anymore on Snowmass Discovery, okay, guys? I think we congratulate Stephanie. We're so proud of you. You've done such a great job at the Discovery Center.
I've tried my best, so.
Yes, you have.
I want to continue serving this community, I
Yeah.
think,
That's all we all want. You're doing a fabulous job, and you're tired.
Yeah, it's been a lot of kids all day long.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so, anyone, Andrew Nolan, your thoughts?
His was more of a critique than
Yes. Okay, so,
some things to consider.
What about the library?
I think there's an opportunity for some little space for a library,
I think that.
maybe.
And the library proposal don't think books on shelves, that'd be a component of it, but they
Yeah.
bring a tremendous technological
Yes.
background to this thing, and that was kind of, to me personally, that was some of the most exciting part that they brought forward. And they've got resources. We've talked to them about different opportunities. I mean, ideally, they've said very clearly to us, they would love to if they got to be king for a day and put a branch someplace, they'd put it down near the rec center for the synergy with the rec center and the parking and all that kind of thing. But they said, knowing that that's not an immediate option, this would be something they're willing to explore with us.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, my thought was that they could be integrated into the coffee shop. I mean, it just seems to
That
to
makes
make
sense.
I mean, the way of the digital book, I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
good idea.
Well, there could, if we get to some of these things, if we were to get to the museum concept, you could have a research corner where they could bring books. In the grassroots media issue area, you could have an area of, digital media that the library could be involved with, for research purposes and things like that.
Yeah, like Village Hall, it could fit in there too, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Aspen Brewing Company.
Yeah, you leave them in.
Leave them in, okay.
I'll tell you, yes, their proposal is that they're gonna have a tap room in the afternoon and evening, but,
You gotta have something in the
but,
morning.
but as others have said, it's gotta be a full day's thing. So
Right.
it makes sense to have coffee in the morning into the afternoon, and then transition from the coffee and, from a coffee situation into a more of an adult beverage kind of thing. And if they have the ability or the interest to, kind of work through that, then they're there.
Uh, I don't know if I'm there with you. I think it'd be nice they came back in, if we have a restaurant and apply with other restaurants for that space, or partner with another restaurant. It's not their norm to get into,
Well, that's true.
I
But
mean, they would have said that in their plan.
It's not their norm to what?
They're not into breakfast and children's food and pastries and
I mean, and
waffles and.
we saw the article in the paper however many weeks back about their location difficulties. So we approached them and said, hey, would you consider? And they put this in. And so I think they don't do food now, but I think what they're saying to us is they're willing to explore, and that's why the LOI is what it is. It's, I mean, it's.
Okay, then leave them in.
Yes.
Okay. I think those are,
But as far as criteria goes, I think your point of, longer days, I mean, I can't remember if that was a specific one you said earlier or not, but I think that is something we understand to be a goal, to make sure there's a morning, afternoon, and evening component to all these. Or at least enough of a combination of them to make it work all day.
I think they could be in the mix when we're soliciting vendors for the
concession.
concession,
yeah.
but I struggle with having them take over more of the building than the restaurant part of it.
Yeah, and I think that's what they intended, was the kitchen and the concession part.
Okay.
Okay. Clint, are you comfortable with where we are? Travis, comfortable with where we are in direction to staff?
Yes.
Bring groups together?
Yeah.
And when might we have a report back?
A month? I mean, and realistically, if we took 3 weeks, making phone calls, studying meetings, seeing how we could get things together, a report back for sure. I'm not sure we're gonna have answers for you.
Okay.
But we can certainly make a report back to you on your next meeting, which is December 4th.
And at that time, I would also propose we discuss sale or no sale. How about the rest of you?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. So if that's where we're headed,
Well, I got three with a head nod.
okay. Oh, you got a head nod? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still, I'm still confused with how these people are going to show so much interest, and when they also know that someone can come along and East-West, or come along with a ski company, come along and say, we're going to buy that building from you, and we're going to say yes. So how much energy is anybody going to put into this? I don't know. I mean, I guess this is where we're at right now. We're stuck with.
We're at a juxtaposition of this direction or this direction. And if we're going in one way, it's those
The
organizations.
ski company owns the Limelight, 4-5, right there. They're controlling the plaza as it is. Not take over the last building. That's obviously, I can't believe that they haven't created a letter to themselves to do something with this, but maybe they still will, I don't know.
My pitch for not talking sell, no sells, I mean, and I've talked to Councilor Good about this, and I think about with you, Mayor, briefly. I don't know that I buy the argument that we're under a super strict timeline. I know just November 1st of 18 is when everything opens up and when we're trying to get this thing done. But if you worst cased it and the building, nothing, and we blew everything and nothing could happen there, even if you put it for sale, I mean, the real value is probably not going to happen until it's constructed and someone can see it. And so I just don't want to put an artificial urgency to something and have that take away from some kind of comprehensive approach. And so I guess I'm urging a little bit of time, a little bit of flexibility. I certainly understand the concern about, hey, we gave 6 months and we're not any further than we were 6 months ago. I get that loud and clear, but I don't want to, some kind of fake, not fake, but unintended urgency that's going to short circuit a thorough look at this thing.
Well,
That's my
I'm
pitch.
comfortable with you leading the conversations with these organizations, but no, the flip of it is, there's some urgency on behalf of some of us to bring this to resolution, quite frankly. And to delay. I don't want to be talking about which partners are going to be together when April comes. We need to make these decisions and move fast. That's what I would say.
And I want to bring up the one issue that we don't have until next month to deal with, and that is the issue of the windows. We have a week and a half until the deadline
Yep, on the windows.
on the windows. So that's something that we need to discuss and we need to resolve tonight, in my opinion.
What are you suggesting about the windows in regards to the design, Bob? I'm not clear.
Well, there's an alternative design for the windows in the street side of the building,
Okay.
okay? To open up that wall, which is now pretty much a windowless wall.
Right.
To open up that wall with windows, larger windows, that would provide some, I guess, visual ability from the street to see what's inside, and from inside to see what's going on in the street.
So if you look at page 200 of the packet, the red number 200, it's under the east-west proposal. I think it's the first page. Well, it's their first page. But the attachment is called East-West Village Hall. Attachment is the name of the attachment.
Which page?
It's page 200, red.
Yeah.
So that's the opening page.
Yeah, so if you look down, I think what Councilor Circus is describing, when this was originally designed, not originally, but the last design we saw was that face on that lower right-hand corner was all solid. And what East-West is saying is, what they're showing is a different window package, opening it up a little bit. And so, in Councilor Circus's point, that would likely add a higher level of flexibility to that space.
Okay, so like on page, on page 2, you can almost see those windows correctly, right, even though it's a smaller version?
That's the backside. That's the plaza
Okay,
side.
that's the plaza.
But 200 is the side, I think, shows that bottom level, and it's that lower right-hand side that shows some windows in there, some window coverings, or windows.
But those windows go all the way through, Bob, is what I'm saying. Even on page 201, you could see the left-hand corner.
Well, 201, so what you're seeing is that top level. And so on 200, you're seeing what I would call the walkout basement level.
I need to borrow somebody's computer because I can't PDF.
And so that walkout basement butts up against the bottom. There's no windows on that back side of that. And then 201
Okay, I see the
shows
umbrella,
the
the
plaza
umbrellas,
side.
right, yeah,
It's
okay.
the ice rink side.
As far as I'm concerned, open the darn building up. I kind of like that new redesign last night.
I mean, I think we should open up the windows. I
think so, too.
frankly don't, I don't know. I don't know that that impacts the use of the building as a museum space particularly, and that's really all, I mean, I guess that's what it was designed for. But it certainly opens up the flexibility of that building.
Yeah, if I were any of these people coming who submitted a proposal, I think I'd like to have some openness and some light in the building.
So this is what we're talking about.
It almost looks dark.
Yes.
It's on page 220.
Yep.
Well, here, it's right here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's the
For
same- it's
example,
the
if you
same.
did the game hall down there, you'd need to have some light. You don't want all that darkness.
Are you a gamer?
I'm going to go play video games. I hope Pac-Man is up.
Kids that I know like it pretty dark. But I'm not an architect. I'm not going to assume anything about this building. Other than I'm guessing that there weren't windows in it because they wanted a space to hang art on the wall. Beyond that, I mean, it's just speculation.
I don't remember.
My first thought goes to more of the bureaucratic process. We had the architectural review and approval a while back. If the goal is to maintain a level of flexibility, let me go back, see what that review was, how the approval was.
Okay.
Talk with East West, and I know that they told us that 6-week timeline, however many weeks back that was. I know they also put this in their application, and those pictures caught my eye in their application, and we asked them. They said they're in a position to put those in right now. If those windows allow for flexibility and can still allow for all these types of collaborations we've talked about, I think that makes complete sense. But if you'd give us that flexibility to check on the approval that you guys gave previously and with some of the folks looking at the space, I think that would be appreciated on our side.
Let's do that. That makes a lot of sense. Can you get a report back to us, Clint?
Can we get that back next week when we have a work session?
I will work towards it. I'm not going to sit here and make promises.
What's the possibility of, if they were to head off where the windows sizes will be, they could certainly fill the space with wall if need be, if it goes in a different direction. If those specific window in this page 200 are set for design, they could certainly fill that space up as long as the headers are there.
Yeah, I think there's even more simple. I think
Yeah.
that's a solution.
I don't
simple
see that.
It's the window package that I understand, and that they need. And I'm way out of my league on this one, but they need to get the storefront package designed in there, and so they're trying to figure out exactly how to finalize that. But if you can give us some flexibility to work with some of the applicant or the people that submitted LOIs, see what they thought, make sure it could be as simple as a blackout a curtain that could solve some of this and provide that flexibility. If the goal is to provide flexibility and ensure that some of these folks that have the LOIs in here can achieve their goals, that's what we'll work towards.
Okay, I think that is the way to go. Okay, thank you, Bob. Let's move on. Any other comments? Okay. You'll have an update for us December the 4th?
Yeah, I'll try and have one next week at your work session, a brief update on the window package, and then I'll make sure we have a more thorough one in a month on December 4th.
Okay, let's move back to the budget. Mary Ann is here. And this is a resolution for approval of the 2018 budget. Mary Ann?
Yes, the town council has reviewed the budget in 4 separate meetings on the 2nd, the 9th, the 13th, and the 16th. And we put together all of the changes that we've been collecting throughout the budget process, and those are detailed on the agenda summary. And so now you have a public hearing and a resolution for the adoption of the 2018 budget for all funds of the town of Snowmass Village.
Okay. Yes, we've vetted this budget a million times. Yes, yes.
Now would be a really good time to open the public hearing.
Oh, yeah. I love my referee. I will open the public hearing. The item on discussion right now is Resolution Number 40, Series of 2017, and this is the adoption of the 2018 budget. Okay, anyone in the public want to make any comment on the budget? Anyone here at the table want to make a comment on the budget or any further discussion on all the detail within the budget? Bob?
Yes, I have one question. When we talked about the budget last, we had directed staff to find out what the stipend was that Aspen gave to
the council.
to its council members.
Mhm.
Does that need to be, if we were to incorporate something like that for the next council, that would need to be in the budget since it would take effect in November?
Well, we could amend a budget at some point. I don't think we've got all the homework done on
I
that, do
don't
we,
know,
Clint?
do we have anything on that?
We've got a lot of, I mean, what the city of Aspen does is they pay for, and Rhonda can correct me, but they pay for the equivalent of an employee contribution.
Right.
So for us, a single employee, it's about $18,000 of our equivalent per person, per council member.
For a high deductible HSA plan, right?
So in Aspen, the councilor has the opportunity to join the town's plan
Mhm.
at 18,000, or if they've got their own plan, they could offset their individual costs for their own plan. And those costs that expense is not allocated in our budget now. But to the mayor's point, if the council wanted to move forward in that, we could come back and have to do it through a supplemental.
Okay.
The other feedback on that is, a council can't make any kind of change to the compensation existing.
Right.
It would have to go forward after following elections.
Right, okay. So we can do it on a supplemental basis?
And, yeah, and we could bring it back and we could schedule that
It
discussion.
probably needs more discussion.
It does need a lot more discussion.
So, yeah, okay.
18,000 is a big chunk of cash.
Per, I mean, if it was the equivalent.
Well, we don't have a high deductible
Yeah,
HSA.
we have a more
Correct.
Yeah, we do
expensive,
not have that one. We've got first dollar coverage.
Correct.
we have a more expensive
Yeah.
plan.
Correct.
Um,
So if you'd like us to schedule that, and we could bring that back to you in January, or, I mean, I'm assuming you don't want to do it in December, but let me know.
No
We-
way in December.
I assume that much, but we could bring that back, and we've got a lot of that analysis completed, and you guys can give us direction.
Okay, any further discussion on the budget?
Just quick, based upon emails lately about the ice rink,
Yes.
do we need to add anything in regards to what's happening there?
So I think I updated you on Friday in a memo to you
Yes.
all that we had savings from previous projects, capital improvement projects. I think it was about $50,000 of savings we identified. We needed 30,000, so we're processing that right now, and we'll be able to purchase that out of this year's budget. So for 18, we do not need an additional allocation.
Okay.
Thank you for that update. Everybody's glad to hear the ice rink will be open. Good stuff.
Well, I'm gonna throw it out because I think we should not include the $1 million that's for Building 6 in the current budget until we have a better idea of when we're gonna need to spend it, because we may not even need to spend it in 2018. And if we need to spend it, because various proposals are asking for various sums of money. And I just think we should know more about where we're going to spend it, how we're going to spend it before we put it in the budget, and we can cover it at any point during the year in an amended budget.
Okay. Any further discussion on that?
I have no problem with that, as long as it could be amended at another point.
I'm fine with it as well.
I mean, I don't see the downside of keeping it in the budget.
You move more towards a balanced budget. And the other thing too, if people knows there's $1 million that has been identified and within a budget, they're going to expect something similar to that. So I'm very comfortable, because it may be 6 million people want. It could be 3. We don't know what the number is.
I mean, just from the previous discussion, when I'm starting to work with all the folks that submitted LOIs, letters of interest, I mean, this would, if it's in the budget, I can say, yeah, this is something, if there's a good idea, the council consider it. If it's not in the budget, then I kind of go back to what you just mentioned, Madam Mayor, about it could be 2, it could be 6, it could be 0. It kind of gives that parameter for us to, reasonably work within. If it's high, I get it, and if it's low, then I get it too. But it at least sets a parameter, and there's no obligation. It would come back to you guys, and you guys could evaluate that way. But at least sets a parameter for us to work within.
I'm not comfortable with leaving it in, to tell you the truth, because it becomes an expectation. Billy's would like leave it in, Alyssa?
I don't know, I could kind of go either way. I mean, I mean, I see what you're saying, I see what he's saying. I mean, I would defer to the people who know what, I mean, is there anything bad about taking it out versus leaving it in?
I'm not going to spend it with explicit council approval, that's for damn sure. I have no problem saying that in a public meeting. So if you're concerned about us spending it without you knowing, that's not going to happen.
So based upon that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget resolution number 40, series 2017, with the $1 million for Building 6 taken out to move forward.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Well, I had a question about something else. Did we have to put something in for sister cities? Did we do that?
There's
Are we-
already something in for
We already
sister
have it in
cities.
Well,
Yeah.
what for Sister
Sister
Cities,
Cities.
it's in your
It's a
grant.
grant.
What you've told us last year was, and is factored in this year, is that they would have to submit through our grant process.
I would just say that if we're going to have a nonprofit in Building 6, I think, to Stephanie's point, it's hard for them to go out and raise money without having the commitment to the building. It's that much harder to raise money if you don't have the support of the town. I think if we put it out there that the town is withdrawing this amount of money, potential money for support for an entity in Building 6, to me, that means, well, is the town reconsidering the potential of this building? So,
We're not removing it from support
Consideration.
of Building 6. We're just taking it out of a budget.
right.
But that doesn't mean we're removing it.
I would say that the public impression would be that removing it from the budget is akin to,
Well,
it's my opinion.
Okay, I would argue another point. I would say if a nonprofit were looking at whether or not their interest is, if there's interest in Building 6, I would assume the max limit from the town is $1 million, and I'm gonna need $3 million. So I think that plays both ways in terms of a placeholder or a non-placeholder. That's my argument back. Okay, we have motion on the table, we have a second. All in support of budget, the budget resolution number 40, series of 2017, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
Your motion
With the
Yes.
$1 million for Building 6
Yes.
taken out.
Okay. The resolution passes.
Thank you.
4-1, is that what the vote was?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bill?
Bill
Bill.
voted against.
Okay, moving on. Boy, we're making pretty good time tonight, guys. Next is reports. Tom?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, actually, Madam Mayor, the next item is just the future agendas.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
And normally this is on a consent agenda item, but I wanted to just point out that November 20th, we know that at least 3 council members will be out of town. And so what we're proposing to do is move all those items that were roughly scheduled for the 20th to December 4th. And just, I don't know that we even need to act on that, but as long as council's comfortable that we'll cancel the 20th meeting and move those items to the 4th.
I will now be out on that date.
So there's 4 of
4.
5 now gone, so. But I guess,
Bill, you're on your own.
Bill's gonna be your
do what you want. Start voting.
I think I'm out too.
Might as well make it unanimous.
So we'll just move all those items to the 4th and cancel the meeting on the 20th, if that works for the council, due to a lack of a quorum.
Okay. Any other discussion on agendas? I don't know, my whole PDF is not working at all. It just goes dead. So I'll leave my iPad perhaps with you, Travis, or I'll bring it down to Doug?
We'll get it. If you leave it, we'll get it fixed.
Okay.
We'll throw something on.
Oh, I got some stuff I got to do. I'll bring it down. Okay. Other agenda
That was
items?
it. I just wanted to get that item said.
Any comments on the future agendas?
No.
I have none.
None? Next item is updates and reports. Alyssa?
There was the Northwest Cog meeting. I was out of town. Bob attended via phone, so maybe he wants to chime in. He's been asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, sure I will.
You know,
So-
he likes a good budget discussion. And other
Actually, I was
things.
very quiet about the budget. Really? Uh-huh, I really was. Because I took what you all said to heart the other day, a couple of weeks ago. When you,
What was that? I
you
forget.
told me it's like I was going to the World Series. Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Now it's Super Bowl, it's
Super
football.
Super Bowl, yeah. So I thought I'd better dial it back a little. Anyway,
Gotta
yes.
be prepared to go to the Super Bowl, though.
Anyway, so I did ask Northwest Cog to kind of give me some information about what they could about how many Snowmass Village residents participated in their various programs, and I got back a fairly long chart that lists a bunch of programs and I frankly thought that it might be a value to schedule a discussion at one of our work sessions on how we can communicate to our residents what programs are available in an attempt to see if there are more people who can take advantage of them.
Right. I mean, like the loan fund is a
The
perfect
loan fund is
example.
Loan
Huge.
fund is
Huge.
one.
Yeah. I
the
mean, I don't
loan
even know
fund-
what the stats are for Aspen taking advantage of the loan.
The loan fund's a big deal. I mean, for
Huge deal.
small businesses,
It's huge.
it would be a big deal. And then I just subsequently, I guess this was Wednesday's Snowmass Sun. There was an article about the Pitco inaugural community support fair. Well, realistically, that's exactly what conceptually we're talking about. You know, trying to get people to understand what opportunities are out there through Northwest Cog. And, you know, when I looked at all the organizations that were participating in this community support, it did occur to me that there was, none of them were the organizations or the programs that Northwest Cog provides. And they provide them to Pitkin County residents too.
Right.
So,
Well, yes. And a lot of people were not even invited to participate in that.
well, I would say, because I
Uh-huh.
didn't see you there.
Nope. I
Yeah.
didn't even know
So-
about it till.
So, I think
Serious.
Pitkin County missed the boat a
Yes.
bit too.
They missed the
on-
boat for many organizations.
On this. I mean, the idea was great, you know, conceptually, the idea was great, but I think if they do it again, they can actually make it much better, and, anyway. So I kept that article in thinking that, maybe on a somewhat different scale, it might be something that we might want to do, you know,
Agreed.
next off-season,
Yeah.
you know, when residents are here.
Right.
So, that's what I've got. Oh,
Okay,
no, I've got
back
one
to
more
Alyssa.
thing.
Wait, Lisa was the one that.
Oh, well, that's true. You
Well, guess
started.
what?
I think, I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Trying to think. I don't think so.
Just say the word numbers to Bob and off he goes, man.
Bill?
Well, I'd just like to thank you guys all for your support of the ice rink. I think that was a really good move after looking around a little bit. I think it's good value, so I think it's a great amenity for our town.
And thank you, Bill, for following up on it.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for
Yeah, you
taking
bet.
the lead on that,
Right.
Bill.
Also, I think we've got some really great stuff happening with our cross-country trail on the golf course this year. We're going to have more multi-purpose trails, which may include fat tire biking.
Whoa.
People who can ski with their dogs on certain trails, and if everything goes well, the trails will be aligned so that we can keep walkers and hikers off the Nordic trails, which has really been a major concern for the Nordic program. It also allows them to groom the Nordic trails without having to backtrack, because there's a couple bridges that are really narrow that they can't take the grooming cat over. So from a just from a maintenance standpoint, I think it's going to be a lot better setup. We're going to give up a little pure Nordic skiing kilometers, but I think as a whole, it should be a better experience for all the users.
That's a great
So,
update.
good
Good
stuff.
stuff. And I have a RAFTA board meeting on Thursday, and I have nothing else to add.
I have an ANS report. Another ANS report. There was a bill. There was.
You need to get a day job.
There's never been a more diligent
Yeah, way too much time on your
reporter
hands.
than Bob.
I'm gonna give him a day
I
job.
think we can tell that Bob's the only one that's retired at this table.
Okay.
I'm just kidding, Bob. Go ahead.
Bob, you're turning red. I know. Okay, we'll calm down.
Just
So,
like to razz you.
yeah, there's a bill that's going to be presented to the Colorado legislature this session in January to require, or to fund aquatic nuisance species testing, programs. So maybe with some luck and some cooperation from both houses of the legislature, there will be some funding for the ANS program at Root Eye Reservoir.
Good stuff.
I
Thank
will
you
try
very
to
much.
continue to report as it goes through the process.
Good.
Thank you very much, Bob.
So we had a,
I'm sorry, Councilor Good, if I might, on that, I hadn't heard that before right now. That is something we need to make sure CML is up to speed on and knows that we strongly support that. And I'm assuming they're probably aware of it, but
I think I have an email from Millie Hamner, I think I got it from, and I'll forward it to you.
okay, and then we'll get CML on it, make sure they know that how it affects us positively and how we would like to get their support for it as well.
Core Board met October 19th and basically talked about the new grant funding for the upcoming year and what the protocol would be. And there was also some talk about more active role in identifying some of the big energy projects in the valley. Then a number of other things, some budget things, Bob, you would have probably really loved, that were talked about. We approved the budget for Core. But more than anything with the Core, I want to say I attended the ribbon cutting for the pedestrian underpass in Basalt on Friday.
How was
It was a
it?
beautiful day, and George and Patty Clapper and maybe another commission over there. It was really good, and there was a walkthrough of the actual structure itself. It's a structure in a structure. They talked about the subterranean and the water level and everything else. If they did, basically it's a tunnel in a tunnel, and if it was not a tunnel in a tunnel, the water level would push that tunnel up, the first tunnel up. It was very interesting. And then they also talked about the new ribbon cutting tomorrow for the bridge, and congratulating that construction company in getting the Glenwood Bridge open probably almost 2 weeks earlier than planned.
That's about right.
And in lieu of Independence Pass closing, I guess, this coming Saturday, it's a great deal. I believe they're doing a ribbon cutting tomorrow
They are.
in Glenwood Springs.
Had to
So,
walk today.
and, but as far as, I left, I didn't go to the Basalt Park. They had ribbon cutting there as well.
Good.
I left that, but it was really a nice day and it's really a really nice underpass. I mean, it's going to be well received, especially since the high school has moved up there. It's going to be great. And there are surveillance cameras inside
Yeah.
the tunnel, and they will be monitored by RAFTA, and they will also be monitored by the Basalt Police Department. So it was a really nice little event. So
Thank you for going and representing all of us. Thank you.
you're welcome. I was happy to be there.
Good stuff. Okay, any other items coming before town council? There's a lot of, yes, John?
Are you all finished?
Yeah,
Okay. Sam Mamet, the director of CML, sent out kind of a high-priority email this week. I forwarded it to, or just today. It's about the proposed tax reforms coming out of DC and their effects on municipal financing and some other things to do with your personal income. But the one he asked us to pass around were the municipal bond exemption, they're gonna maybe change that around, but more of his concern are private activity bonds, which are housing, hospitals, educational, cultural, that kind of stuff. Could be in a real drastic position. He's encouraging anybody and everybody in Colorado that to contact their congressional delegates and express concern about that. So I just wanted to pass that on to you. I sent you the emails that he sent along. Some of it's kind of scary because Colorado is a very much a sales tax driven state, and the exemptions are going to go away for that, which are going to make things more difficult for municipalities. So please read that email.
Okay, well, read that, and I saw the draft summary of the budget that went forward the other day and proposed, and it does a lot in terms of hurting potentially the Medicaid expansion program. So I'm following that one with great interest. Okay. On a good note, the snow's falling.
Don't jinx this, Mayor.
There's no jinx. Okay, we're going to get out of here.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much, Tom. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in support?
Aye.
Aye.
Same sign? Okay, we're done.